behind the microphone.
There you go.
Hi there, welcome to this very special episode of Fantasy for the Ages, where a father, a son, and some other people sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for being with us here again today. I'm self-consciously wondering now if my wife is sitting here next to me going, oh, there he goes with his presentation voice again.
Yes.
Basically, yes.
We are thrilled to be with you again today for the final, the long-awaited, you thought it was never going to happen, third episode of our Mistborn Trilogy. Because Judy and Rach have both finished just recently.
Don't let them lie to you. They both finished this a while ago now. But we've been busy and we're like, hey, we're all here in New Orleans. Let's do this together.
I remember how when this was first being talked about that we'd eventually do this final book, Rachel was like, yeah, I think I'll have it done by Thanksgiving.
I did. It's not Thanksgiving
That was
yet.
almost a year ago what she was talking about.
It's not Thanksgiving yet.
I think that was the previous book she was going to get done by Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just funny.
It could have
They're
been
all
this
the
one,
same
though.
now. I feel like I'm studying for a test and I haven't attended class in a while. I'm just like cramming now.
We'll get to the content in a little while here, but first off, Zach, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's decent weather here in New Orleans.
Wait, you're in New Orleans?
We are in New Orleans.
We're
as I
in New
said.
Orleans.
We all are in New Orleans. None of us are in our normal places. But tail end of our vacation here, it's been quite nice. I've probably gained like 50 pounds.
You could use to gain at least 25. I'll
Yeah,
give you that.
Not in that part of my body. When it's all just right here because the food's that good.
Hey!
I didn't say a thing. But no, it's been good. And it's been good seeing family.
Yeah, it's been nice to have a full week of vacation, just having got away and done nothing but wake up when we feel like, go do whatever we want, eat, sleep, and be merry.
Now, I will put an addendum in there. Wake up whenever you guys feel like. We would sleep half the day away and have been choosing not to.
I, as usual, have been normally the first one up. It's just my pattern because, especially on vacation, I'm like, I do not want to sleep the day away. So I've gotten up and edited my podcasts, kicked off Try Reader Tournament, and read books. That all works for vacation. Judy, how about you? How you doing?
I'm on vacation.
Woo!
Woohoo! Enough
She's
said.
Yeah, period.
Boom. Rach, how about you?
I had class during vacation.
Oh, she's been the one person who's had to actually kind of work while we've been away.
Well, y'all, Jews.
They weren't supposed to.
You weren't supposed to. Well, I also wasn't supposed to. Did I? Maybe a little bit. But yeah, but I finished a big project, or at least half of a big project. So that's, good. And this is my first time in New Orleans. So also a good time.
Very nice. This next part then is we'd say what we're drinking, but we've been in New Orleans for a week. We're kind of saturated.
Yeah, when we say, what have we been drinking? What have we not been drinking? Responsibly, mostly.
Because we don't have a car.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a car.
I have a car.
that you blew the tire out of, but
That was before I got here. There was no drinking involved.
And
That
he
is true.
changed it
It's true.
on his own. I had to kick a tire iron a couple times, but otherwise.
So thanks for teaching. Oh, wait, you didn't.
hey, I kind of gave you some help, some pointers.
Not on that one.
But what have you had to drink already today?
I had Dr. Pepper.
Have we had food today?
No.
I don't think so.
Wow, this is gonna be
We
a
had-
boring episode.
We had coffee and Dr. Pepper.
I've had a Sazerac and
Coffee.
water and coffee. But there is more to come this evening.
Oh, yeah.
I drank more than I had all week last night. So
So you didn't need anything.
the
this morning.
fact that you saw me as early as you did Which, keep in mind, was not that early. But-
Judy, you have anything to drink?
I tried Pim's Cup today.
How'd that go?
Pim's Cup.
How'd that go?
Tasty. It's very like
Oh, good.
refreshing.
That's one with cucumber, right?
Yes.
I'm going to have to politely decline, but I support you.
So if you don't know some of these beverages, Pim's Cup is well known at one of the particular key historic restaurants in the French Quarter. And Azarac, that is drink of New Orleans.
Officially.
Official beverage by state legislation. So that's kind of cool. And I'm stocking my bar to make more of them once I get home. What we've really gathered here now for this episode is to wrap up the opening trilogy, the Mistborn Era 1, 3 books, which is kind of cool for where this is coming out because the final book of Era 2 is about to drop. It's about a lot of people have been reading this, getting ready for Lost Metal book 4.
So what you're telling me, our timing was impeccable. I was not slowing you down. I was just setting you up.
Let's go with that. Sure. That's just
Make me
Weird
feel a little
point of
better.
clarification in my brain. Lost book 4 or book 5?
5, 4.
Go to their Twitter
I think it's 4.
and tweet
I
that.
couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I
No,
don't
because
remember.
there's Alloy of Law, there's Shadows of Self, and there's Bands of Mourning.
Yeah.
And now the Lost Metal. 4.
Okay. I don't know.
So it's a quadrilogy,
That
or
would be the correct
there was
word.
a different name.
Some people call 4 cycles, but I don't think that's.
I thought
think
there
that's
was
just
a
general things.
tetralogy.
Tetralogy
Was the other name
You
for it.
could probably say that. I wouldn't.
Well, I thought you looked it up though once and found
Well,
that for us.
Tetra is 4, so that would
So,
make sense.
I like quadrilogy. Judy, tetralogy, quadrilogy.
It's 4 books.
It's 4 books. You got it from Judy. There you go, 4 books. All right. So you finished this book. Now we're not going to go over the first 2 books again, but there were things that needed to happen.
Pause. Important notice. If you
Spoilers.
haven't read the first,
If you haven't read the first 3 books,
Yeah.
don't watch this.
all three
All
three.
of Mistborn, you got to read that first era before watching or listening to this. We usually are spoiler light. That's not the case today.
This is
Today
not
will
a
be
spoiler
full
episode.
spoil.
Though we won't spoil anything about Era 2 because they haven't read Era 2.
I can't spoil much about Era
He hasn't
2.
read Era 2.
I will try to do my best not to spoil too much Cosmere related that is unrelated to this here. I will also say Secret History, no spoils there. I'm not going to go into that because these 2 haven't read that.
Judy's going, Secret History? What are you talking about?
That's arguably Era 1.
Hmm.
But
So this isn't a book review.
no,
This is
Oh, thank
about the
heavens.
experience of having read
it is a
Mistborn.
book report you'll be graded later on.
Listen, y'all have been talking back and forth about what a 4-book series
giving you
is
time
called.
to
Yeah, I'm
catch
just
up.
still reading. Like, I'm not reading. I finished.
She's not really done, as it turned out.
Stop! I finished it in June.
Don't tease it too much. I'm the only one she'll feel comfortable hitting with that book.
It's a thick book too. It's not as thick as the second one, which we all know how I feel about the second book.
Wait, isn't that the first book?
No,
Just kidding. Just kidding.
somebody hit him.
I was like, if it is, it has a lot of spoilers.
So
for
what
the third.
is the name of this book?
This is the Hero of Ages, the final book in the Mistborn Trilogy. If you were unaware of what you were listening to,
So
hashtag not an ad.
who is the Hero of Ages?
Shoot, we should probably know
It's a
that.
good
huh?
question.
Hmm.
I wonder. Oh, we're actually pop quizzing this. It's a
I'm
bit.
really asking you.
Oh, it's a bit. I thought you were
Nope.
just being sarcastic.
What are you talking about?
That's just not right.
It's not been.
Oh, are you talking about how Sazed
Really
becomes the
says
hero?
it's the villain who's
Well,
the
okay,
hero.
so
I
but
mean-
here's the thing. He had technically been originally given the title of announcer, and then it was later discovered because he was announcing Vin as the Hero of Ages. He was just wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
He was just wrong.
From looking back on it, what people thought they were wrong. Totally wrong.
Well, see,
So
I don't
would
even
you say
think of him
who
as the Hero of
actually is
Ages.
The Hero
now.
of Ages?
So
That's what he said.
this series
Good for
starts
him.
out as
Yeah.
you got this dude named Kelsier who's going to be the hero who's going to step up and lead the people back to where they need to be and solve the problem and take down the Lord Ruler. And obviously, that didn't work out that way.
Kind of did.
I mean,
Okay.
He
died
just
along
didn't
the
get to
way.
see it.
Then Kelsier's out of the way. Some people going, is he really, for a while? But okay, Kelsier's up. I don't know. Siri
Thanks,
is looking
Siri.
for Sears now. I don't know what that is.
Sears doesn't
You're gonna have
exist
to look
anymore.
hard. She actually said, "I can't find Sears," and that's actually
It
appropriate.
doesn't
Yeah,
exist
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. So
At least
then
he-
Vin steps up, and it looks like Vin is maybe the one who's going to be the leader and solve things. And it's understandable. Zed would be confused, thinking Vin is the one, right?
Well, everybody was, because the Khandra did too, and they were the ones kind of keeping all of the secrets, if you will.
It's okay. I was cheering for Marsh to become the hero of ages the whole time. No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
no.
Now-
that poor man though,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so through the ringer.
Before we talk more about this hero of ages thing, then can you just, in the simplest little bit, if someone says, "What the heck is this book about?" What would you say?
I had to
The
do it
two of
last
you,
time. It's
just
on
kinda-
Judy.
Kind of break it down.
Oh goodness, you finished in June. I don't remember when I finished this book. It was so long ago.
Ellen's in charge. There's a bunch of wars being waged. Vin is talking to Ruin, which is this looming figure. People think they're getting more powers. People think Kelsier's back. A lot of people die, and Zed becomes a god.
Kind of end of world.
Yeah, period.
Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic. It's a
Mhm.
very much an apocalyptic book
Mhm.
of that. Everything's dead, died. Oh, there's a sprout of hope.
Mhm.
Now, ironically, this is already something that could be called dystopian apocalyptic literature. Do we know that entirely when we're reading this trilogy?
I would argue yes.
I think we do.
I have no frame of
The
reference.
world used to be different, and now we've got this world of ash and everything.
I do believe that is how fantasy fiction typically works. yes.
So it was already post-apocalyptic.
Right, and now,
Now
there's a
it
new
is
apocalypse, but it
Neo-apocalyptic.
seems to be taking it somewhere better. Because I mean,
True.
the result at the end is, oh, grass, butterflies.
Yeah, I'm like the
whatever.
apocalypse isn't taking it better. It just kind of at the
I
end.
mean, it resets.
Yeah, the very
Yes.
end, the entirety of what was building throughout the entire trilogy doesn't count because we just changed it all.
Yeah. Everything that was is now clean slate. Let's start over again.
Sounds like a book I've heard of before. Sounds like something familiar. Not that I'd really know, but the wheel of time turns. Just stuff repeats. It just starts the same thing over.
We got to get you reading this book.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
nice
how you
try.
explain. That's how
Nice
it was
try.
explained to me. I'm not a good person.
Well, in the sense of it has different ages and restarts.
Now,
She's not wrong there.
Notably,
Well,
since the last time we had an episode here,
I still have not read.
you have
anymore.
read now almost all of them.
She's almost done with Towers of Midnight.
She's got one more after that.
What? I'm halfway through book
How do you-
13.
How do you?
You're over halfway.
I know how.
I'm
you
not-
work. How do
I'm
you
not-
freak-
I'm not taking class, so when I come home from my 40 hours of work, I can like
If you like.
40
okay,
hours of
50
work?
or 60 hours.
Thank you.
Then I
First
can
audiobook.
and actually I like sit and read, and I don't have friends,
It's a stressful.
so I just read.
Hey,
It's okay. You've got 20
she
to
doesn't
30
have friends.
years.
I don't buy chopped liver.
You've got 20 to 30
No.
years before you even have to start them because it took him that long to convince her.
Perfect. It took you about one night to convince me to read these.
I just had to be very drunk.
so drunk.
So
Sounds like a story for
Do you
another
not-
time.
Do you not know that story?
the story's out there, isn't it? You know
We
that.
talked about
I've
it
heard
on
it.
Even
Yes.
the podcast
Okay,
knows
okay,
the
okay,
story.
okay.
All right.
The podcast knows the story.
It was a while ago.
So, how did we get to the point of there being this actual new apocalypse to move on to a brand new era? Can you at least fill us in on the detail there?
So, I mean, I can't remember the actual name of Ruin's counterpart.
Preservation.
Thank you.
Preservation and ruins.
So, Ruin was slowly but surely taking over Preservation because there was some sort of promise that Ruin would allow Preservation to work as long as he was able to, this entity was able to then ruin but then preservation trying to string things along, giving little parts of themselves, creating allomancy, just kind of doing everything they can to extend it. But then, of course, there's the hierarchy of allomancy and this whole rigmarole into apocalypse stuff.
Do you know, because I like most of the things you said. For weird reasons, I don't actually like you saying preservation creating allomancy. But we can go into that another time, maybe.
He didn't like formally
not
create.
intentional.
No, he didn't do it on purpose, but like giving a piece of themselves. I don't know why I'm gendering in a concept, but like giving a piece of it happened. It resulted in allomancy. It didn't create.
Can you name the one major thing that preservation did with as little of Ruin's influence as possible?
Probably not.
That did technically like upset that balance and break that promise.
Probably not.
Blank stare here too. Dead air time.
Y'all were the ones
Come on,
that
Zach.
when I finish it in June, you're like, oh, we'll wait till November. It'll be fine.
People was the problem.
I thought the whole point was that that preservation was allowed to create people as long as Ruin was allowed to ruin people.
Well, and that was kind of the thing. They made all these things together they can make and then ruin, and then preservation was like, but I'm gonna make people, and I don't want people to get ruined one day.
Yeah, I was talking about that though.
Yeah, people are the problem. People are always the problem.
What?
People are the problem. There,
What?
you got it from Fantasy for the Ages.
You heard it here first, folks. But yeah, that's, I mean, lore-wise, that's
In
kind of
the lore.
in the lore. It's kind of condensing it to the concept of ruin and preservation
So,
being a balance.
There's a lot of battles. There's a lot of fights and things that happen throughout the story, and people can read it. You should read it. It's a good book.
It was a good book.
Getting
for what
to the
it's worth.
climactic ending, how does things get flipped? So instead of Vin winning the day, it falls to Sazed.
Well, Vin dies.
Why?
Wasn't she decapitated? No, Ellen was decapitated. Somebody was decapitated.
I think technically Marsh was decapitated as
I
Ellen was
thought
dying.
Marsh decapitated Ellen.
They killed each other, kind of thing.
It's a mutual killing, if you will. I mean, the actual part of it was.
And Vin went out in a.
But Vin and
Rage?
Ellen almost.
Yes, actually.
But it was almost on their part. To me, it seemed more sacrificial of them giving themselves. I mean, doing the fight that they did, so that Sazed had this chance to do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
To create, I mean,
They
they find them in the field with their hands held or whatever. To me,
Heads
that was
reattached.
yeah, and it was like, okay, we did this, we did what we had to do for humanity to go on, so that Sazed could do what he needed to do for this to happen.
If I remember correctly,
I don't
kind of
remember
the
how it
tail
all
end,
went down. So
Sazed mentions in his letter that Vin and Ellen had the chance to come back and went, nah, we're good.
That is accurate.
It's like,
So, we did our thing. No, we're going on. We're
What-
done.
Is it every D&D spell that you can bring somebody back from the dead? They
If
have to
they're
be
free and
willing. Yeah, and they're not. Well, they were free.
Not willing.
Not willing.
They were happy to be free.
Honestly, I'd be so exhausted
I
too.
wanna be free.
So
And that was kind of the thing. They spent years
like a bluebird.
doing this constant struggle, getting through this mess, and they're done.
Me too.
So because Sazed makes a different choice, he's totally not done. No. So what happens because Sazed accepts what comes to him then? What's the deal now?
And essentially, godhood.
Essentially. Yeah.
Not
okay, you
it's a little
gotta
convoluted.
kind of run things now and make sure it works. Kind of.
Yeah.
So what happened to Ruin?
He got deaded.
Well, at some point there was like a fifth.
Sorta.
Well,
The
so
vessel did.
Yes.
I was about to say there was some point where there was some sort of. I don't know if I'd call it a physical representation, because it
An
was
avatar.
yeah, that would work. Some sort of just like entity, but more physical as opposed
The
to
entity
conceptual.
that was utilizing the power of ruin was
Yes.
gone, dead, but the power of ruin has to go somewhere.
I don't know why it was important that he was a redhead. I also don't know why I remember that.
Yeah.
I can admit I didn't remember there
It
was
was
a redhead.
like specific. Like Brandon Sanderson was like, "Oh, we see a male figure and he has red hair." It's like, why is that important?
Is that hating on gingers?
I guess so.
Ouch.
I swear, I'm not
No,
making
you're not
it
wrong.
up.
I'm
not
pretty sure you're
making
right.
it up.
Brandon, if we just misread
Because-
that, hit us up.
And I'm
Let us
pretty
know.
sure earlier we see Preservation's vessel, if you will.
It's like blonde.
I think it's just an undescript
Definitely not a ginger.
Not a ginger.
brunette, like just boring looking.
So
That checks out.
what happened to Preservation?
I mean, he kind of just like was just kind of like finally, and then was able to relinquish. It felt like, at least that's what it felt like, if I remember correctly. Just the idea that Preservation had been giving so much to continue humanity, people literally giving parts of itself to humanity. Ruin was ruined. And Preservation was like, cool. And then was like, cool, you have fun, bye, I'm done, I did my thing.
So the power of ruin, the power of reservation.
Preservation.
Did I say reservation?
You said reservation.
Reservation.
You
The
thinking
power
about
of
food?
preservation. Both powers are released and go into Sazed. Sazed has it all. It blends, combines, becomes, you said, a god, and has a new name.
Missed that
I
or
know.
don't remember
I
that.
think it's mentioned in here. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you if it's mentioned in here.
I
The
think
good
it's
news
right at
is
the
I
end.
can.
I think it's right at the end.
Well, with his
She's
letter,
gonna look,
I'm assuming.
because if
We'll see.
not, you'll have to read Era 2.
Well, I was looking for the ginger thing, but yeah, I can look at that too.
Although that's real gripping for them. Let me look real quick because I know what I'm looking for, and
Well,
Zach
I
can
just found
question
it.
you
I
more.
found the thing. Also, the fact that the letter from Sazed opens with "I am." Unfortunately, the hero of ages is kind of devastating. Bring them back. What contains a short record of events that led through history.
Editing
Don't
shall
give me
ensue.
that.
Well, his point was just we know what word
Okay.
we're looking for.
Thank you. Zach, ask them something.
What
Like,
kind
You're
of
such a good
Blanks.
BS
host.
is that?
What a good host.
If you wanted to leave, you could ask him something and I could look. Now I do. Okay. Where were we?
I
The hero of
was
ages.
less surprised and taken back by Vin dying and like
Mhm.
not being the hero of ages than I was Kelsier dying in the first book. Like when Vin died, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When Kelsier died, I was like, oh my god.
Let's go a couple of key fun moments here just to see. Do you remember them? Did you think they were cool?
It's not there.
I'm gonna look at a different spot.
Okay, so before he answers that, I will just reference the fact. Okay, so the hero of ages. Says that it's the hero of ages. You said he's God. God needs a name.
Functionally.
There is no name yet, but there is an Era 2, and gods tend to go on. So foreshadowing, eventually Sazed, the hero of ages, will have a name. And it
He's
won't be
not Sazed
Sazed because
anymore?
he's not really Sazed anymore. He has
I think
surpassed
that he is.
Sazed. He has
think
grown
that he is.
beyond what he was.
The path of him questioning religion
Mm-hmm.
in its entirety, not just like
Yeah,
specific.
he lost
religions.
faith for a while there, for
like
sure.
pretty much the entire book.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Like going from complete loss of faith, which was also sad because you could also tell that he didn't want to lose his faith. He had just lost the woman that he loved, which not corrupted his faith, but kind of shattered it.
Mhm.
Going from somebody who completely lost faith, which they dedicated their entire existence to becoming functionally a god that is inevitably going to be worshipped, especially having been the hero of ages turned whatever
Rightfully
this
so,
is.
I guess, right?
Listen, Sazed was objectively one of the best characters. Like, in the sense that, sorry, if you disagree with me, that's fine. You're entitled
You're
to your
wrong.
wrong opinion. But with that, the way he was written, the way he cared about others, the way he went about things, I just found him to be one of the most objectively good characters. Both good in the sense of like morality and just a well done character, or just a well done person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well done in being medium rare.
Well, correct, of course, because that's the only way to do anything.
So you had a question, Zach. You had pitched to them.
Yeah, I was just going fun key moments,
Yeah.
big things. First off, one of the biggest that sticks out in my mind, just because I love the cinematic quality, Critic Shaw. Big thing in the capital, right? Is gebroked.
What a word.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Has it been too long since you've read it?
I have too long. Are you
Lucidella's
talking
just
about
not real.
the buildings
Yes.
itself?
Yeah. The building
When they-
the Lord Ruler, yeah.
Kind of went and just
I mean,
you know,
Vin blows it all up.
yeah. That was in this book.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, to be fair, like it
they
blends
start
together
It's
a
been
little
too
bit.
long
Yeah.
and they blend together.
I feel like the
I'm
way
sorry.
it's written, it also just like blends together.
So, other big moments, things that you remember, that you do remember, that you really liked in this book.
Oh, dude, we have summaries of the previous books.
Oh,
But we're not talking about the
Why
previous
didn't we go
books.
through this? But this would have been so helpful. Why didn't y'all tell me about this? Not you, them. Not
I was
you.
like, I didn't have this
Not
copy. I don't
them.
know what you're talking about.
Them. Anything to do with Tensoon. Y'all know how I feel about Tensoon. They can do
Was
whatever.
getting
They're
there,
just
absolutely.
so phenomenal.
So,
Um,
yes, talk to us about Tensoon.
We love Tensoon.
I just
That poor
No.
pupper.
stop.
But not really.
Yes, really.
Nothing can happen if there's not at least one person willing to go against the current. And he was literally the one Khandra that was willing to go against literally the entire, I don't know if I'd call it a religion, but the creed of his race.
Yeah.
And also just the hierarchy that's described in their society.
Mhm.
Even going against it, I was astounded at how disrespected he was. Because he was, what, second generation? Maybe
I
third.
think it was
I think
third.
he was third.
But that's still high
But
up there.
still,
There's like
yeah.
12
Because
generations.
the firsts were not seen from very much. They were way up in the shadows. The seconds were ruling on the council.
Speakers.
And
He was
jerks.
third.
Jerks. That's what they were.
Yeah,
Second
seconds were
generation
jerks.
were jerks. Absolute jerks. Sorry, I was still looking about the description of Ruin because I think it's funny. Anyway, it kind of in a way made me happy that Tensoon describes like missing the dog bones because he was so anti-dog bone for a while.
Like, I used to them.
Well, when he
Yeah,
got
their
used to him
benefits.
too. Yeah, it was the fact that he was like, okay, maybe this was a good idea.
You know, a dog's life is awesome, basically.
Our dog's life is awesome for sure. I'll tell you that much. Oh, to be Rolly.
And I think one of my favorite things about it was not just the advantages of like you can go wherever, people don't notice you, people take care of you, but they're quite literally,
Like there's
I'm
physical.
faster.
Yeah.
I'm stronger doing this than in a human form.
Also, the glass or crystal bone thing kind of like felt funky. You know how some Khandra were like,
Mm-hmm.
we're too good for
Yeah.
people bones.
Yep.
So we're gonna make bones. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
yeah.
Like imagining that was not icky, but like felt strange. As if nothing else in this book is strange.
No,
right?
there is no other strange
There's
thing in this
no
book.
other strange thing in this book.
Judy, any big thing that jumps out from your memory from this book?
A
I mean, we've talked about a bunch of them already.
bunch
but-
of them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of my favorites was reading with Spook and the whole everything that he was doing in the city,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and being in New Orleans where there's lots of canals, and
Uh-huh.
they were basically in the empty canals. I thought that was kind of cool imagery
Yeah.
of a city and how it might be.
Well, and
different.
then Ruin giving. I don't know if you can see my air quotes behind the microphone. Anyway, giving, yeah, exactly. Giving another allomantic power. I don't know.
Allomantic.
Okay, I was phenomenal.
You got it.
Allomantic power to Spook, and then appearing to him as Kelsier, was to manipulate him, was very interesting to me, because then he also had to make the conscious decision to give that up. First of all, he had to come to terms on his own, because nobody was shaking him Spook, it's not real, it's not Kelsier. He just had to be like, why are you laughing at me?
I'm not. I'm sharing a look with my father.
Well, stop. Stop. Why are you? Oh my god.
Carry on.
Every
Yeah.
time they do that, they make me think that I'm super wrong. I probably am.
I'm
but
just sitting here. It's him doing something.
anyway, he had to come to grip with that himself and realize that a lot of the things that Kelsier was saying to him just isn't something that Kelsier would have done. And then realizing how much of an effect whatever type of metal had been stabbed into him was really big. I mean, this is still a kid. He's 18, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Something like that.
I was not. If I was going through that at 18, I'd be like, this is horrible. Well, I mean, it was horrible, but.
Not to mention he's been torturing himself for the last year because he lost his father figure at the end of the last book.
So do you think you finally have this allomancy and hemalurgy all figured out?
No.
And Farukami, while we're at
Let's
it.
throw that in. Why not?
Well, hemalurgy we've learned about last. We learned about
We learned
Farukami's
most
second.
of the details of that in this book.
Yes. Which is still,
Icky.
that's the one that's the most confusing to me. But I guess
That's fair.
hemalurgy is oh my god.
Take somebody else's power by
Yes.
Yeah.
driving metal through them into you.
And I
It's
believe,
just ew.
and I believe
Very
technically it needs to go through their heart into you.
And it doesn't
be
have to be
elsewhere into
immediate. You can drive it into the person to steal their power, and then you can put it into you. But the longer the delay, the more of the power is lost. Which is why ideally you're right behind them. I mean, it's right there. So
Blood
it's
bridge.
instant.
It's very icky
It's blood
when you
bridge.
think about how many spikes are in the Inquisitors.
Oh,
How
Each
much
God.
that
one of
is,
those
and that
went through someone.
Each one went through somebody. That's why in that first book we see that scene where they think Marsh is dead because it's really gory.
And then you have to come to terms with the fact that that was not just one person that was destroyed. Or it was unlikely that it was one person destroyed within that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Icky.
The icky.
There's
Yeah.
a dark secret. Yeah.
Just one, though. Just one dark secret.
So
Just one.
the Hero of Ages has changed the game. Predictions for the future. Do you think that means allomancy, Farukami, hemalurgy have been wiped off now? Is that done?
I mean, I guess it depends on. I think it could still exist, but that's going to be dependent on Sazed's decisions. But with that said, also,
So says it has the ability to decide.
I would imagine so. I mean, it's going to stick around most likely, because if it's something that was people were born with it, at least in this sphere of this planet, this setting, I would imagine Sazed leaving, it's not like he's sucking away the allomantic power with it. Now, whether or not it goes on throughout the entirety of the Cosmere is different.
And just
story.
to be clear, so that he doesn't necessarily mislead you, because it's been a while since you read it, he does explicitly say that he made Spook full Mistborn.
Right.
So
Thus,
if he has kids,
there
ever,
must still be power out there.
there
Right.
may still be.
Whether or not that's
These
something that
elements.
he gives to other beings, because again, going into the whole preservation, giving a part of themselves to humans, leading to allomantic power, I would imagine Sazed taking that power upon himself would give him the opportunity to do that. Will he? Will he?
She just pled the fifth. Ah.
I can't speak for the Sanderson himself.
The Sanderson.
The
Brando Sando. Okay. So as you have finished this trilogy, there are 3 more books out there and a 4th about to be released. It's a new era. It's directly connected to it, but it's not quite the same. There is a time jump. So you don't just pick up where this left off. Same world, but I believe
After.
like 300 years later.
About 300 years.
Okay. And things have changed, but it's a continuation of Mistborn in that sense, that there is more to be told. Do you have interest? Is it something you think, I might want to check it out at some point?
No
Or not?
is an okay answer.
Did Brandon Sanderson do well enough with this to pique your curiosity to at least explore the alloy of law?
I was more invested, I think, in the first one than I was in the second or the third. So I think having to keep track, and part of it was like this last one, I'm just like, they're doing what? Huh? Okay. And just keep going. Maybe it'll figure out eventually. And I think I lost a lot in going through it that I maybe didn't dig into enough. So I'm not sure that just picking up the next one, if I would actually get it,
Yeah.
or if I'd have to go back and actually reread some of
Rach,
this.
what do you think?
I think that I overall really enjoyed it. I did. I enjoyed the first book. I actually might have enjoyed the third book the most, even though it was the most confusing. The first one could have been a standalone if it wanted to, in my opinion. I think the second one was interesting in the last 3 chapters. And I think the last one, while being the most confusing, was particularly interesting. But because it's confusing, you had to be willing to be confused, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after that, I also just have so many other things I want to read.
Sure.
For me, it's between my TBR and me not necessarily being prepared to be actively confused again. I probably wouldn't. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I just may not necessarily be interested in doing it again. And I got attached to these characters. I don't know if I'm going.
That's often my issue with
care.
time jump things.
Yeah. Now,
And to be fair, neither one of us is sci-fi fantasy, our go-to genre.
That is also true. That's not to say that other people who are actively interested in sci-fi fantasy shouldn't read that or will share our experience. So if for whatever reason you're a crazy person listening to this and haven't even read any of Mistborn yet, if you decide to read it, go through it, and you're like, oh my God, I have to go through to the next generation, pretty much. Is that what it's
called?
more of a
Era.
Star Trek
Era.
thing,
Well, I
but-
know, I'm just
Hey,
I was asking a question. Anyway, era. I'm sorry. If you want to carry on to the next era, do it. All that matters at the end of the day when it comes to books is that you enjoyed it. Unless the book is
sucks.
bad.
Yeah.
Bad in the sense of writing or content. There's some books
I
where I'm
think
like,
more
maybe
content. Yeah, actually.
maybe we shouldn't, maybe that shouldn't have been written. Maybe. That's not as common though. But the point is if you enjoy any type of literature, it means that you're doing something that makes you happy. Go for it. Just because I probably won't read the next era, it sounds like Judy probably
Might.
will. Maybe we'll see.
Well,
Give her another 20 years.
having heard your reactions, the things you liked and didn't like about Era 1, and I'm the only one here who's read Era 2 at this point, I can tell you that the things you more liked about these, Era 2 leans into more. The stuff that frustrated you, that bored you at times, there's much less of in Era 2. Therefore, I also enjoy Era 2 much more. Now, not everybody agrees with me on that, but the majority of people do. one example I'll give you is simply that it leans more into the characters and their relationships. Even though there's a lot about characters and relationships here, it's even more built on the interactions between these characters and introduces in those interactions more humor than there was here.
Okay.
This is a more serious trilogy. There's serious stuff happening in Era 2, but it's intentionally built to be lighter, to be a more enjoyable read. And the mysteries that you're trying to figure out, you had to figure out mysteries here too.
Mm-hmm.
The mysteries are a little more in the background in Era 2.
Okay.
There's action happening. The mysteries are the sub-level that you do have to figure out eventually, but it's different.
Granted, when the next book comes out and you inevitably read it, maybe that will be false and we'll all be surprised.
Perhaps. When I read The Alloy of Law, I initially didn't like it because it wasn't this. It was so different from the first trilogy. I'm like, what is this trash? I was looking for more Mistborn. This isn't Mistborn. But it is. I needed to accept it for what it was. Things had changed a bit. And the focus, the style was different.
Right.
Now, when I got over that, well, I enjoyed the book. I've read it twice now. And I like it better than these. But it was an abrupt change that if you're not ready for it, now you're ready. I've warned you. But if you're not ready for it, you're like, what? I didn't need this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, me saying that you have to be willing to be confused with this book. I mean, that's the best way I can phrase it, is you have to just be willing to go, yeah, okay, sure. Let's go down this road. Let's see where this goes. I have no idea where it's going, but sure. I still found enjoyable. Like, a lot of it was compelling at a bare minimum from like just a reader meta standpoint, if you will. I'm sitting here going like, how did he even, like, did he just wake up one morning and go, you know what would be really cool? If people would stab each other with metal and then get powers.
Yeah,
like,
how do people think of this? This is true.
I'm like, good for you.
And
you're clearly successful because
And Zach, you may have heard this already. One of the things about Brandon Sanderson and why a lot of people enjoy his writing is he has a lot of confidence in the reader. He doesn't feel like he has to hold your hand.
He doesn't
He intentionally
typically
leaves mysteries out here for you to just eventually you'll figure it out.
He doesn't typically over-explain in a way that is talking down to the reader, which I appreciate.
He makes the assumption you are intelligent readers, and eventually you'll get it.
Not yet. I'm still working on that. If you, again, haven't read these books and are listening to this, first of all, why? To each their own. Second of all, there is an index in the back that apparently people don't know about.
By people, you mean yourself?
She knows it's
I
there.
know
Look,
about
You
it.
use it all the time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, heads up. I the first book especially, I would stop and be like, absolutely not. And then I'd flip to the back of the book and be like, okay, I'm back on track. And then
what's that metal?
it's like metal. I don't
Yeah.
shoot. What are these nicknames? There's 4 nicknames for each type of Allomancer, so it's gonna be one of them.
Street name and the
Yeah.
proper name and the nickname that the wealthy people have.
Right.
for it. It's
The
like drugs.
rapper name,
It's
like
drugs.
Okay, Judy, I have a question for you. Being you're reading the second to last book now of The Wheel of Time.
Yes.
Brandon Sanderson had written these books, the Mistborn Trilogy, when Robert Jordan passed away.
Okay.
And when he was tapped to be the guy to finish the Wheel of Time series. This is really all that was published for Brandon Sanderson at that point. He's written a ton of stuff since.
And he'd written
this was it.
some other things, but they weren't published yet.
Right. And Brandon Sanderson, he gets this job because when he was a big Wheel of Time fan, and when Robert Jordan passed away, Brandon Sanderson had a blog that as an author, and he put out on the blog basically his own little mini eulogy to Robert Jordan for all this it meant to him, the Wheel of Time, and how thankful he was for what Jordan had put out there. And somebody who read that passed that on to Robert Jordan's widow, and she read that and she was like, maybe this guy could be the guy to help us finish these books. And someone handed her Mistborn then, and she at least read part of it and then called Brandon Sanderson. Funny story. He said, she calls him up and they have a quick conversation. You know, you're on a short list of people we're considering to to finish my husband's works. The list only had one name on it at that point. It was Brandon Sanderson, but they didn't tell Brandon that. So when you've been reading now Wheel of Time books, these last two you're reading, that's Brandon Sanderson's writing with Robert Jordan's material.
Occasionally.
Do you see the comparison? How did the two compare in style? I mean, do you see any of Brandon's writing as you saw it in Mistborn in these last Wheel of Time books? That was a lot of words to get
That
to
was
that
a
question.
lot of words to get to that question. But I think there was so much laid out for Wheel of Time that if you didn't follow what Robert Jordan, if he hadn't followed what Robert Jordan had laid out and very much had the plan for, it could have been screwed up.
Mhm.
Just, he kind of had to take that to that point. I think he was true to those characters, but yet there's some of this complexity I think that we see in his own writing here with Mistborn, that complexity that Robert Jordan, some of his characters have complexity to them like that. So I think you can see that kind of similarity in style
Mhm.
of like them having, you're talking about, can I say names?
You
I
can
don't
say
care.
names, but
I
not
don't
details,
care.
please.
Okay.
You can say-
But
it's
say
not a
com-
Wheel of Time.
You
So
could-
you can say a name,
so you
so
could-
if they know, they know. But
Okay. So if like, I think there's complexity to like Nynaeve's character that we're still searching for here in this last book and a half that I'm still in, or Egwene. We've got Perrin. I mean, any of those core characters that came out of the Two Rivers, there's complexity to their
and she's
character.
not full spoiling because she hasn't finished the series.
I have
yet.
not
Okay,
finished
so
So I think in that sense, there was complexity to some of these characters, and I think he could use his background in that
Mhm.
to carry over for his writing in what he did to finish Jordan's work.
okay,
Does that make sense?
sure. Tiny fun teaser for you, and I'm going to ask Zach the question to see if he knows the answer.
Oh,
Actually,
goodness.
there is one primary, secondary character. That's a bad way to say it.
That's a really bad
There
way
is
to say
one
it.
important secondary character
Prominent.
in these last three books that is entirely Brandon Sanderson's creation. A lot of characters he was working with that were things Robert Jordan had already started with and Sanderson finishes. But there's one character that's not introduced until these books that's completely Brandon Sanderson's guy. And in fact, he came up with this, and it's a guy. He
I
came
think
up with
it's
this
a guy.
person. He bounced it off of the editor, Harriet Jordan. Well, her last name's different, but Harriet. And she said, yeah, you could do that. I think my husband would have liked.
I know who
A
you're
guy
talking
that
about.
he added.
I know who you're talking about. I wouldn't describe them as a secondary character, but I do think they're important.
He's
Just-
more tertiary.
Just because of how few books
Okay.
I put tertiary.
I just
Um,
like the word tertiary.
But I do know who you're talking about.
Don't think I'm far enough along to figure that one out
Okay.
yet.
Well, we won't give
I've
the
got.
answer yet.
I
A lot of people out there going, ooh, I know this answer.
I'm at a weird point in my brain going, do they show up before the last book? Is it the second to last that they show up? Or is
I'm
it
pretty
just
sure
the last book?
No, I'm pretty sure it's second to the last.
when I'm done, they'll tell me who it is,
But maybe it's
and then
not
we'll
to the
find
last
out.
one.
First letter's a P, right?
No,
Is it not?
no.
Is that not that character's name?
Great.
Not a P.
No, their name's not a P. The other person's a P.
Yes,
but
yes.
we are on the same person. I just
yes,
can't remember.
okay.
I can't remember his name.
Right.
I'm really confused now.
And on that note, I think it's a good time to wrap up this episode.
Oh,
I'm still
We've
trying
got-
to find the
we've got
line
another
about him being
section.
ginger.
And we've got one last section we
Oh.
need to do because we did it in the last two.
Oh, okay.
I have a small list.
Oh, he does.
Ah.
All right.
And we're gonna get it's the smallest list of all the books that we've had.
Well, because there's a lot of
Mostly it's
repeat
going to
characters.
be just repeats.
It's been months, so they might not have read
Yeah.
or watched these three episodes straight
So
together.
we're gonna
remind
have
what's going to happen.
some names, characters from this book in particular. But in this case, I'm not asking it for this book. I'm asking it for this series. how did you feel about this character on a scale of 1 to 10? Now, you can choose to answer this subjectively as to whether or not you liked them, or objectively as to whether or not you think they're a good character. You can elaborate as much or as little as you want. But 1 to 10, 10 being good, 1 being bad, what are our thoughts? We're going to start with some big ones. Vin.
Fine.
Fine is not a number. Vin.
1 through 10.
So Vin got pretty high scores for me for the first 2 books.
Mhm.
But in book 3, I kind of felt like her contributions were less. Maybe it's been too long since I read the book. I don't know. But I wasn't as like taken by her as I was in the first 2. I'm like 50-50.
So 5?
Maybe a 6 or 7.
4.
A 4 from Rach.
I find her to be so static. Like, I just don't feel like she grew like age-wise, like time progresses, I guess. But I guess that's how time works. But
Maybe
she was a Mistborn, and then some guys found her, and she was good at what she did. That's it. Like, once we learned about her being a Mistborn, there was next to nothing compelling about her. It was everything that was not given to her, but like the title of Hero of Ages being given to her. Like, that was interesting. She wasn't, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Like, that maybe.
I just think it's funny.
But
I don't think you're wrong necessarily.
Does that kind of make sense? Like, I feel like she was.
Yeah.
I feel like she was
Totally.
static.
Makes sense.
Next big one, Ellen.
I'd give Ellen at least an 8.
In this book, he
Worked
gets
so
to shine a little bit more. He's got the Mistbornness now. He didn't have that in the last book, so it wasn't until the end of the previous one.
And he's got where he goes out on a limb and does some things and really shows some leadership skills, not just trying to follow along with the crowd like it seemed like everybody wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I'll give him points for that.
How many
8.
points?
An 8.
I
think he gets some brownie points for figuring out kind of the ATM miss things as well.
I also just think that he was the person that was willing to figure things out more than almost anyone. Everybody else was very like A to B. He was like, but why is this happening? What do I
to why?
Wow. Yeah, like, you know how it works, but obviously. But the idea that he was the one, I think, figuring out the most, whether it's how to approach the situation, how to work with what you have, just he seemed the most adaptable.
Okay.
So that's why he gets at least an 8, if not a 9 from me.
Next on my list, I've got Breeze. A little more broken in this book than he's been previously. Do we have any thoughts about him or through the series?
I mean, I did not like him.
He kind of sticks with him through it. You know, he's kind of like the trusty sidekick, so to say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there. He doesn't give up on them. Type thing. 6.
I think I'd say a 6 or 7. I just like he was, for as selfish and arrogant as he came across, like he's that kind of person that seems uppity, but isn't necessarily like he's like you said, he's stuck with them kind of thing. He could have gone off, did whatever he wanted to. He was a very powerful soother. He could probably get away with murder kind of thing. And I guess he did, but he cared about people, and it was evident that he cared about people, which I appreciated.
So keeping with the trusty sidekicks, how about Ham? Same kind of feelings? Something different?
I mean, Ham was never the same after Kelsier died. He just wasn't.
Are you thinking Ham or are you thinking Dox, who died in the last book?
Was Dox the best friend?
Dox was the best friend.
I could have sworn it was Ham.
Ham's the thug.
Sure. But still, I mean, actually, I think it still applies to Ham. I think he was.
Ham's the one who tore the sleeves off of his uniforms.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I got that. He was. I think he was smart. I think he was helpful. I think he was there.
I won't force you guys to give numbers on that one. You guys feel kind of.
I think it's a 5, a fine.
Yeah.
I had no negatives. I had no positives.
I am going to force a number for the next one, though, which is Spook.
Done. You
He
know
shines
what it is.
here.
I mean, it's a bare minimum a 9 for me.
Yeah, I was very conflicted about him through this book.
Really?
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm like, dude, what you thinking? I mean, he kind of goes out on some limbs where you're like, what are you doing? And in some cases, it almost feels like, okay, you got lucky, that worked. I mean, all comes out for him in the end, but I think some of his journey to get there was a little convoluted.
How often is that not true for people?
Well, exactly. It was maybe that made it more realistic, more
So number
8.5.
Again,
8.5.
8.5. We
I'm
have
gonna
the
go with-
waffle in play.
I'm gonna go with a good 8.75. Maybe.
Oh, see, that's more
Thanks.
decimals than me.
my biggest thing is I think that this is the saying that he shined is correct, but also just this was the most dynamic he had the opportunity to be.
I really think of the story for him as kind of a coming of age for Spook.
Yeah, it showed very much his strength and what he came through, but it also definitely showed his weaknesses.
Now we're going to do just a couple that are not necessarily huge parts of this book, but the context of the series may change how you felt about them previously. Have you changed how you feel about the Lord Ruler? With the full context of ruin and
learn a lot
preservation,
more of what was going on now.
does anything change?
No.
Yeah.
Rachel
I
says
think
no,
so.
but she's doing it very quietly, so I don't know if Mike is picking her out.
Well,
I'm shaking my head very vigorously, even if the mic
Some
isn't
people aren't
working.
watching. They're listening.
Oh, well. Maybe they
I
should
mean,
watch that.
I think he had better motives for what he was doing than what anyone gave him credit for. No one understood him. He thought he was doing what was best, even though he probably wasn't doing what was best. I think. So,
Okay.
I think he could be, in retrospect, I think you can see him as more of a conflicted character than a straight bad guy.
He certainly saw when he made the decision to do what he did that if he didn't do it, things were going to be terrible for everybody, and didn't see a different path forward.
Right.
Now, in a similar, different way, after the context of the series, do you feel differently about Kelsier?
Is it bad that I don't feel different about either of them? Like, I feel
No,
like
you're allowed to have the same opinion.
I didn't comment on the Lord Ruler, but for me, it's still like I understand the conflict, but just, I mean, morally, like you should see people starving, dying, being mistreated, establishing this hierarchy, and know that that's, I guess, in my opinion, like objectively bad. And if you have all of that power, I mean, good on you for holding back Ruin. 10 out of 10. Great job. You do not care about literally anything else or literally anyone else if that's the case, because that much is evident within their society. Kelsier, good for him for sticking his chest out, doing all this good stuff. Still think he was pretty full of it. I feel like he was full of it. Good for him for hitting the first domino, if you will.
Yeah, in retrospect to the series, you see now he was kind of that first number. But if he hadn't done it, would something else have?
That's a good point. We only know because that's how the story goes. Just
Right.
because he did doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't have. So it's more just he was. This sounds almost degrading to him, but it's like, was he special or was he just the first?
Now, I have 4 more, and they may just need numbers. The first of those 4, Ruin. as a character.
I'm not dignifying that.
Rach gives a -1.
Thank
to
you.
ruin
Thank
there.
you.
Okay.
As a character, I had a hard time seeing that as a character at all.
Mhm.
It was more of an entity that was having, I guess that makes it
In
a
this
character.
book, you
but-
see it a little bit in some of those conversations, especially with Ben. You get to see it kind of personified.
It's been too long. Sorry.
The next, similar yet different, a very complicated character, Marsh. Across the series, what do you give him for a number?
He is so misguided by the end. I just felt bad for him. It was like,
Tragic character.
yeah. But it's like, but did all of the good, it's like, how did he think going into this that he was going to be able to retain himself and the good?
And he was still fighting for the good at the end, but had no real control for the most part, save for one tiny moment.
I think that he is the character that gave up the most out of anyone because he didn't understand hemorrhagy. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Hemorrhagy enough. Like, I mean, people didn't even know it was a thing. Like, they met these. If they were, oh my God, what's the word I always say incorrectly? Inquisitors?
The Steel Inquisitors.
Sure. I mean, they just thought that they were jerks that looked weird and had allomancy. Like, it wasn't, at least within the first book, the spikes and everything, it's not something that people necessarily understood
No.
if they were outside of that ring.
Well, I don't
which
think he understood that
And-
going into it.
And that's what I'm saying is like he sacrificed so much and then it turned out biting him in the ass. Like, that's pretty much what it was.
There's an argument to make Marsh a 10.
I think there's an argument to make Marsh a 10. I don't think I can give Marsh the full 10, but I do think that he sacrificed the most, did what he could.
And does this work out in the end without him?
I mean, I guess not.
Our last two are also ones with big sacrifices, possibly high numbers here. First, we're going to have Sazed.
9.
A 9.
9. I love him.
She just gave God a 9.
Hear me out. He, for most of this book, was a freaking crybaby. There were times where that man needed a good slap across the face.
I mean,
he was
grieving.
yes, but his grief extended into other things. Like, there's
Yes.
grieving somebody you lost, and there's being a woe is me person. Because it turned into what am I anymore? Who am
Yeah,
I? What
he
is going? It's
wasn't-
like, get a grip.
He wasn't grieving the person alone. He was grieving the fact that he lost everything he believed in.
We're thankful to note Rachel's graduate degree is not counseling.
Yeah. What about you, Mom?
Get a
Sazed?
grip.
What's the number?
Oh. Okay, if I'm going over the whole series,
Mhm.
then yes, I would say a 9 or 10. But this last book for me, it was like, where are you? And then, okay, and then it was like, okay, here he is. Ba-da, ta-da. It was, I had a hard time with him as a character in this book, as much as I loved him in the first two.
So let's balance it across the series.
I said a 9 or 10. 9.
So
9.
9 or 10 still even
He's
with
still
this book.
still with this book.
So he
He's-
could have
he's
made
so-
the 11.
He's so integral in it that you can't. I mean,
Okay.
you can't take him out.
Okay.
Not
Last
One
one,
more.
last one of the easiest for me, I think for Rachel as well. Tensoon.
11. Sorry, did I go too slow?
That was the good boy school.
Did I, the good,
Good boy.
boy. Which feels degrading because he's
Not
not a
just
dog. Like, he's not a dog. But he
He sacrificed so much and stuck to his guns. I mean,
Yes.
he went through this, he went through that, and he's like, no, you guys are wrong.
Mhm. And that's huge. That's he went.
I mean, for the way for his people.
He is still by his very nature kind of gross, though, when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's not important.
Honestly, if you told me tomorrow that Rolly could undo off of his bones and become a pile of bleh, he'd still be the best boy. Yeah,
The
he'd
next
still
is-
be my best boy.
And if you mention, that, and, if you forget to walk him, he could kill you, eat your bones, and become you.
No, he couldn't.
can't.
Oh, wow. Woo.
Because the
He's
contract.
not allowed to kill people.
The world has changed.
Other people. Yeah, but
He could
like,
kill Chandra, but he can't kill the people.
well, he wasn't supposed to kill.
Well, they didn't like it, but it wasn't against the rules.
It was
technically.
an unspoken against the rules.
Anyways, number for your mom?
We'll give him a 10.
There you go.
That was a 10 if it didn't come through.
And that's all I've got
All
on
right.
that list.
That's it then. That was fun. Thank you, ladies, for joining us for this. Rachel is still looking for that quote or thing she wanted to find in the book.
It's true. I know it is.
Look to see him being a redhead.
Yes, he's a
Yes.
redhead.
Thank you, everyone out there, for being with us, for joining us for this wild and crazy conversation about Mistborn, the hero of ages, the fun we had with the book, the fun the ladies had with the book. And we hope that if you have not read it and somehow watched this anyways, we didn't tell you everything. Go read the books, enjoy them for yourselves. Perhaps we've inspired another reread if you have already read them. And definitely, I encourage you to check out Era 2 if you have not done that yet, because flows nicely from Era 1. And there's going to be like Era 3, Era 4, and maybe Era 5.
It was meant to
Wow.
be an era 1, 2,
I
and
might
3,
not live long enough for all
but
of
the
that.
current
but-
era that is era 2 is actually like 1.5 or something. I don't know.
And there'll be more time jumps. Sorry, Zach. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I'll deal.
All right, so thank you, everybody. I'm going to play our outro music. They get to see me get up for this.
Mhm.
There it is.
I can kind of see it. I don't have my glasses.
You can find this whole time.
Yes. Well, I don't need to see myself.
Please go ahead and look for ways to connect with us. Subscribe to our content. Like this episode right there down below here now. Notes. Review us on audio. There. Find us on Discord. If you really enjoy this, look for us on Patreon and Fantasy Pages. Support. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next time. As I
Bye.
reach slowly for the button.